This is the smoothest mapper I've ever played, and it's a perfect Agni Viper Strike of the Mamba Pathfinder. And it's dot capped with these really shitty daggers. Now classically, Mamba stacks a lot of critical strike chance with ambush, crit multi from there, turns that into dot multi using the perfect Agni keystone, and then uses a ton of low tolerance clusters for a lot of increased damage. There's a lot of other things going on that make this build do so much damage with really obviously powerful defenses on this level of gear. Firstly, I want to highlight that I'm using Pyroclast Mine of Sabotage. So I saw this in Sister Hell's build during the league start where he was able to uber dot cap on a glass cannon character. But basically, if you use pneumatic daggers, which allow all damage types to poison, and then use Pyroclast with Sabotage, which gives you a ton of flat fire damage, you're able to turn a ton of flat fire damage from these mine auras into, gigantic single target poison damage. It's a really efficient way to get damage, and frankly, you don't need to do this other than when you're on bosses, because mapping wise, you have really high damage as a Pathfinder due to the proliferation. Secondly, I'm also a Frenzy stacker. Now classically, Pathfinders don't like to do this for two reasons. Firstly, Frenzy generation is really difficult to do unless you're fast hitting. And secondly, it's really awkward to give up your belt for Alessia's Delight, because normally you want to run something like Tides of Time, Mage Blood, or a rare belt. I'm making these sacrifices though, and I'm also able to do my charge generation through the new Avidity Keystone on Deadeye. Now it's a little bit awkward to do, but I use Blood Rage while mapping, and it's just something to manage, but it's a huge payout, more than doubling my damage overall to go to this Frenzy stacking setup. Defensively, while this is not a new Pathfinder setup per se, it's something that a lot of Mamba characters don't look like. Most Mamba characters that I looked at tried to go for Ashes, and it's a lot of damage, about 40% more. I instead opt for Defiance of Destiny. I know, super meta again, but super strong, and I think probably what most Mamba players should be using. Mamba's biggest challenge in my opinion is with recovery. As a trickster, you're using ghost routes. As a Pathfinder, you're mostly relying on like life flask recovery with Tides of Time, but I think using Defiance is so much better. It's only lost about 40% damage, and there's people that play one-hand Mamba with Fallen, which is I think just strictly worse than this. I also combine this with Petrified Blood and Progenesis for that traditional combination on Pathfinder, Flesh and Stone for generic damage mitigation, and also opt for Lightning Coil with a 90 max res setup using Melding of the Flesh and a ton of max res jewels because of all those jewel slots I have from low tolerance stacking. The final challenge that my build really confronted at this point is with attributes. I found it really hard to do that, so instead of using Glorious Vanities of Bakwa, that's set up using Chaos as your mitigation, or using a Lethal Pride for a lot of extra strength, or going Brutal Restraint for Second Sight for crit cap, I instead opted for Supreme Ostentation on the Caspiro Elegant Hubris, which lets me ignore attributes altogether, tattoo a ton of stuff including Suppression, Flash Duration, Chaos Resistance, and then I'll use the Light of Meaning with Global Crit Chance so that I'm crit capped while mapping even without ambush. If you want to look more at this build, let's dive into the POB right now. So as mentioned, this is a Pathfinder. I kind of take the classic setup. In T17s, it's actually possible to not use Master Surgeon. I take so much damage anyways, so I'm pretty much never actually on full life, never able to recoup this. So I thought about dropping Master Surgeon for Nature's Boon, just, for a little bit more extra speed, a little bit more scaling on like the suffixes here, and especially a little bit more scaling when I run a gold flask for Exile's MFing. But yeah, that's the core tendency. The tree. A little bit awkward looking, but it's fairly straightforward. There's, slight deviations from what you normally see. Basically, I play Ostentation here because I don't want to modify too many other nodes elsewhere. Pathing over here, grabbing a few nodes that look pretty normal. I do want at least one Poison Mastery for the 300%. I do, however, skip the 20% faster poison. Firstly, T17s are weird. It's not like Uber bosses where there's a lot of mitigation. T17s are weird in that they're just tanky by having a lot of life a lot of times, no matter what mod you're running. So like, if you're at dot cap, you're already there, you can't actually increase the damage that much. But what is also kind of not great is that these nodes give dot multi, chaos res, and increased damage, and those things are all useless for my build. I do take this area though. The faster poison in here, it's just like there. I was taking this earlier on because I do like to have faster increased duration of ailments, but mostly I need to get the max charge here and then also jewel slots. It's actually completely locked on jewels right now as I'm currently set up. I could drop Light of Meaning, but I'm not even running a Watcher's Eye. That's how tight I am on jewel space. Both clusters are 3 passive voices, running single low tolerance. I could run the Brood for Potency, I think that's what it's called, cluster, but I haven't gone to that point in gearing yet, at that point in crafting. But yeah, that gives you flash generation. I think with enough of those, it's possible to drop maybe both of these wheels and then take max res on like Reservation, or maybe max lightning res on the helmet. Everything should be tattooed. I'm missing one tattoo right now, but Everything else has been tatted, some suppression, charge nodes, and I really like to have recoup on this setup. When you're playing Petrified Blood and Progenesis, you don't really get one-shot that often on Pathfinder. I mean, some things can still one-shot me, like Volatile Cores, but your recovery tends to be a problem. This combined with Life Flask is really probably enough, but this recoup is really important with Defiance of Destiny as well. Skill gems. Rolling Blades, Brutality faster. I think Brutality is really important. This is to make sure that you don't poison enemies as you're moving through maps. Mamba can't poison already poisoned enemies, and you want to only have one poison. I run an Arcanist Brand Life Tap to spare Alch Mark setup. There's different steps to go for, but I like this one in particular because mana is really annoying for me. And also, you want to not mark on hit this, because you want the mark to be applied first before you attack the enemy, right? Because then, you know, you attack the enemy already with your Viper Strike, and then the mark's already there, and then yeah, we'll do that. But if the mark isn't there to begin with, and you have to mark on hit first, then you have to go through one full poison, wait for that poison to run out, and then go again. Ambush setup is what it is. I don't like second wind that much. I think if your poison duration is long enough, it's not really a big deal, and most bosses die anyway. Frostwing, Blood Rage is really important for mapping. If you don't want to run Blood Rage, it's possible to go for this and take the increased duration as a charge stacker, but I mean, it's a lot of nodes for not a lot of value. Pyro Sabotage linked with Arrogance, Minefield, super important here. Really strong setup. It's kind of weird because like while you're mapping, obviously you don't need to use this, and you're actually a lot tankier while mapping. But I like the Arrogance much more than reserving mana. Withering Step is how I apply Wither. You can play Wither totems. I think they die really easily. And there's a lot of things you're already doing, so you want to have relatively instant skills. E3, Purity, Petrified Blood, Flesh and Stone. Strong setup in general. I like to be res overcap because I'm running, you know, altars and stuff, so it tends to be pretty good. And lastly, Mamba setup. Let's do jewels first. Unique jewels. I'm running the Forbidden set as aforementioned from Deadeye, Avidity. So this gives me +1 Frenzy, and it also gives me a ton of accuracy. So I'll be switching my gear later to deal with that accuracy to like account for that. But right now I'm doing that, and then I'm also able to get my charge generation. It's a little bit awkward. The game doesn't like this generation very much. There's a lot of times where I like literally don't stop moving, but I change direction or something and I don't get a frenzy charge in that second. So it's actually kind of easy to run out of frenzy gen, and it's why I take the frenzy duration here. But yeah, I mean, it works for what it is. It's taken a little bit to get used to, but pretty strong. Both voices are 3Ps. I think, you know, it goes for as small number as possible. Elegant Hubris, I don't care what note it is. I just want Caspiro. And then Light of Meaning and Melding. Pretty self-explanatory. Melding, and I'm playing Max Lightning with the Topaz Flask, Pathfinder. Really strong setup. Mediums I've gone through already. And then every single one of these jewels is a max res jewel. There's a bunch of good notes to look for. This one, for instance, has max life. This one has recoup flask duration. Both really strong. Reduce curse, max life. This gets me curse mitigation with this. I'm already curse immune. Melee crit multi is really good. Crit multi with dual wielding or one-handed is also really strong. And then I don't know why I have attributes here, but that is what it is. Lastly, well, second last, let's go for the flasks. Progenesis always OP on Pathfinder. I got the Topaz Flask. This enables melding. Any sort of generation prefix with the diamond will be really good. And I do like to have my Ellie Res here just because, you know, why not? You could also put Ellie Res here instead and then put the leech suffix over here. But I find that this is like, you know, I want to make really good use of this. And if I'm already res capped to a sufficient point, then I'm going to keep that. And then finally, this Quicksilver with Reduced Curse. I always run my CB and Bleed Immunity on this Life Flask. I chose Concentrating just because the suffix was like really high rolled, but you want a Saturated Divine Life Flask. Finally, gear. Weapons are really bad. These things were done in less than 5 essences because I got lazy when I first set up this character a while back. Later on, and probably like the next thing that I'll be doing is upgrading this. I want to go triple T1 prefix instead of hits can't be evaded because I have so much accuracy off Avidity, but we'll see how that really calcs out. But the more important thing, I want to have crit chance on both of these, and I also want to have crit multi. I think just like I don't have that much crit multi on the build. Even over here, I took the full life mastery instead, so crit multi is gonna be pretty strong. Other rares, I have a helmet with dual res, life. Mind throw speed feels really good. That's pretty much a more multiplier to like QOL, which, you know, makes a pretty big difference. And then for gloves, suppression, dual res. Spent like 15 conflicts hitting +2 strike skills, but you don't really want to get this anywhere else. The other option though, if you do want to open up the tree, maybe drop on medium, is to take this. Assured Strike with this feels really good too. And I've given it some consideration because it's just so much extra strike range to have, especially as like a dagger build. I know a lot of people like swords, but you could do this and then go like +1 frenzy gloves instead, which I had but kind of deleted with rolling plus on synth gear, but that's not important. Last rare, a gold ring, +1 frenzy. I just chaos spam suffixes and then use a Veil Lord for last suffix. Really cheap this league because chaos is like 1 to 400, and then Calandra's touch. Last thing, uniques. Alessia's talked about already. Ralakesh for generic charge stacking with Alessia is really strong. Defiance I mentioned, and then Lightning Coil is my chest. So you see, it's a pretty like kind of straightforward build with a lot of intuitive interactions. It's not that different than a lot of the Mambas, but it's sort of combining what I think are the best pieces from each of the Mamba setup to make a build that I think is smooth mapping, really, really great defensively, which is the biggest thing. Like having that multi-hit mitigation, constant recovery has felt fantastic in T17s. Farming Ubers has felt really great. Just takes a little bit of getting used to because of the Avidity Jewels, but yeah, this is the build I'll be playing. And in a couple days, I will give you Cyclone. My Cyclone's coming out. All right.